Clive, we had a question here from Dylan. And while you sort of just mulling over that question about what book inspired you the most that helped you to get where you are today, let me just mention, obviously, to everybody, and I maybe haven't sort of mentioned it, but as part of this YouTube channel, we run a Student Success Coach members-only Facebook group where you guys can hop in there, and I moderate it, and we have a mentorship program running with a number of mentors that are already signed up and willing to accept people to mentor. And maybe they can't do sort of more than 3 or 4, etc., per week and so on. But at least that is up and running. And within that Facebook community, you get access, obviously, to everything else that we're doing in the community and these webinars and courses and resources and all the people that have been on these webinars are available through that group as well. So I'll put the link in the chat there now, and you guys can jump into the Facebook group there to take advantage of it. But Clive, just maybe your thoughts. That one book, is there one that stands out for you? I remember, Clive, just before you, and I'll give you a bit more time to answer that, but I remember we had a coffee at Tasha's, and your usual spot there, and you had mentioned a book to me. We were meeting with somebody else, I can't remember, in one of your thousands of meetings there, and you had mentioned a book to me, and I got up and I walked straight to Exclusive Books. I said, have you got this book? I went home and I read it, and it was one of those, the Exponential University founders, if I can remember correctly, Salim Esser, I think, or one of those guys, can't remember offhand, but I benefited a lot from that book as well. So is there anyone that stood out for you more than the others?
Let me I'm a sales guy, so I've got to answer a question with a question. But so the first thing is, I'm a voracious reader. I've been a voracious reader since I was a very, let me not say very young kid, because I wasn't reading the right books. But as soon as I hit university, I became a voracious reader. Today, I consume a book a week. And I'm a busy guy, but I consume a book a week. So before I go to bed every night, I want to just clear the brain. And I either watch a Netflix video, which is not good use of my time, but I quite enjoy it. There's some great choices out there. Or I read 20, 30, 40, 50 pages of a book. But basically in a week, I'll get through every single week, I'll get through a book. And most of them will come from recommendations from other people. Also, I'll Google it, but I've got a collection now of probably 100 books on I've got probably 3,000 books on my iPad, but I've probably got 100 I haven't read. So which one's really, if I think back to my earlier career, I think 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, it was very, very impactful in my life. And I'm not going to give you one answer. I think, that's a Stephen Covey book. I would definitely recommend. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, very, very influential book. The Art of War by whoever it was by is very, very influential book. I think that Good to Great from Jim Collins and the later book, I think Good to Build or something like that. But Jim Collins, probably one of my top business authors, probably one of the top businessmen in the world. So that's more in the leadership style. I've also read Jim Maxwell's books on leadership. I've probably read all 20, 30 he's written, and they're absolutely superb to teach you about leadership. 101 Habits for Great Leaders. So I've consumed so much of those books, and I've learned so much from those books, and I've actually practiced so much of what I've learned in those books. I wish I could practice more, because sometimes I do things and I say, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't what I learned, and that's not being great. That's being average. And sometimes you don't practice what you preach. But there's so many books out there, and today, even if you got to be fit today, you got to get in the gym, take an audio book. You don't have to listen to music. You can listen to an audio book. 5, 6, 7 hours a week of training, you consumed an audio book. So there's so many different ways of actually consuming those books now. It's not like in my day when I actually had to go to Exclusive Books and buy them physically, and you had to physically go through this hard paper. And the most important thing to me is, from 10, 15, 20 years ago, I've been, since, or the Kindle came out or iPad came out, whatever, I mark everything I read. So if I read something important, I'll mark it. And I read, and I keep on reading, I keep on marking these things, and I cut them out and I put them in a separate thing. And a lot of the things I share with people is I keep on refreshing myself when I read a book. I don't read a book once, I'd rather than 100 books, I'd rather read 10 books 10 times or 20 books 5 times, personally, because there's so many golden nuggets in some of those great books. But I don't get all of it out of the first read. Maybe you guys do, then it's great if you've got that sort of memory. I need to read it a few times. So the great books, I keep on reading over and over and over again. And it's quite amazing that even 20 years later, like Good to Great and the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, the more you read it, the more gems and pearls of wisdom you pick out of those books. So it's not about which book. I think there's many books. I don't think any one book is going to. But then there's entrepreneurship, and there's phenomenal books around entrepreneurship. How to build an entrepreneurial business. How to be an innovation-led organization. How to innovate. There's just no shortage. So I don't want to. I could spend the next half an hour talking about all the entrepreneurial books I've read. But you need to become a voracious reader.
Yeah, you need to start a blog. Yeah, fantastic, Clive. Hey.
No, just last point. Reid Hoffman wrote a book. So Reid Hoffman is the CEO of LinkedIn at the moment. He was one of the eBay and the founders of their top payments company, whatever it's PayPal, whatever it is. But he wrote a book, and he talks about I can't remember the title of the book, but it's a book by Reid Hoffman, and he talks about being in permanent beta yourself as your own life. He talks about building your own brand and being in permanent beta, seeing yourself as work in process. Never see yourself as you've arrived, because you never arrive. As experienced as you are, experienced I am, experienced Peter is, we know we're there. We know we're on that journey there. I know where I want to go in my life and how much more learning I still have to do. So he talks about being in this permanent beta and being work in process. And I love that analogy of being work in process. And you're permanently building your brand. You're permanently in work in process. You're permanently in permanent beta. And it's just a pity I can't remember. It's an age problem. I'm having a senior moment. But
it'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me. Yeah. Yeah. On the screen there, that Peter Diamandis book is How to Go Big, Create Wealth. Phenomenal book. Phenomenal book.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much good stuff out there, guys. Just start reading opposed to worry about what you're reading. Just read.
Yes,
There's
exactly.
so much to read.